Well, that's kind of perfect there, Rhino, since we've been talking about this new Willow chip, the quantum computing chip, a little Jim Morrison in the doors to bump us into this segment. Thanks for that. Daniel Erspamer, CEO of the Pelican Institute, is our guest now here in the Element Well Studios at the Flora Sheraton. Daniel, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Tell our audience about the Pelican Institute. What do you guys do exactly?
Sure. So the Pelican Institute is a sort of sister group to Empower Mississippi, and we work on free market issues in Louisiana, just next door. So,
okay.
We always used to be able to use Mississippi as the butt of our jokes, but y'all have passed us by on so many things. So we love working with the Empower team, and a little friendly competition between our states is a good thing.
Okay. Well, we were just talking with the Speaker of the House about tax reform, of course, one of the areas that Empower, and I'm sure your organization focuses on as well. Just had a special session in Louisiana, and your governor signed in sweeping tax reform that is going to essentially result in a single bracket of 3%.
That's right. That's exactly right. It was something obviously just like in Mississippi we've been talking about for years, the need to reform the tax code. And the results are pretty sweeping. Not only will we have a flat 3% income tax rate for individuals, there'll be a flat 5.5% rate for corporate tax.
That's a reduction.
That's a reduction down from 7.5%.
Yeah.
We've eliminated the corporate franchise tax. We have made the inventory tax optional for our parishes.
The dumbest taxes ever invented, by the way.
Oh, absolutely absurd. And of course, we're one of only a handful of states that has an inventory tax, franchise tax, and a corporate income tax.
We had it too.
That's right. So we're keeping up with you on the franchise side at least. So all of that's good. And then a big, one of the things we've been working on is a streamlining of our state Constitution. And one of the challenges, we have the second longest Constitution in the country behind Alabama. It was ratified in 1974 by voters. 74, and yet we've amended it more than 200 times since then by vote of the people.
Okay.
So what you end up happening is a whole bunch of stuff that really ought to be in the statute and laws locked up in the Constitution.
Is that through ballot initiative?
Through it has to go through the legislature and then to the voters.
Okay.
So one of the other big reforms, voters will decide on this in March, is to streamline the finance section of the Constitution. And one of the big outcomes of it is unlocking a whole bunch of funds that have been sort of just locked up in the Constitution. And we're going to spend $2 billion of those funds to pay off local teacher debt in order to give teachers a permanent pay raise.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a different set of problems, I guess, than we have here. You may be aware that our Constitution provides for a citizen ballot initiative, but the Supreme Court struck that down on a math problem, honestly.
Right.
And so we've been trying to get that restored here in the state, and we can't seem to get our House and Senate on the same page on that. So we've been without one now for 3 years.
Wow. Isn't it interesting to watch the dynamics of a legislature play out? We've got term limits in Louisiana for our legislators.
Okay.
So what we see a fair amount is House members coming over to the Senate or vice versa. And, it's always funny. I joke with my former House friends. Something about the air in the Senate seems to be different.
Not the water, but the air.
That's right. That's right.
Gotcha.
It's interesting to watch that process play out.
All right, so let's talk about one of the policy areas that Empower focuses on, and you're well aware, and that's school choice, education in general. And in Mississippi, we have attempted for quite some time, largely driven by Empower in its advocacy, and Grant Callen, the CEO, to implement universal school choice, which has been implemented in a number of other states. Arkansas, the final, I think, phase of theirs goes into effect next year, if I'm not mistaken. You've got fairly aggressive sweeping school choice in Louisiana.
We do.
We lag. in this area. Tell us about the experience in Louisiana.
Yeah, we have maybe one of the longer track records of various school choice, whether it's public charter schools or vouchers or tax credit scholarships.
Decades, right?
Decades,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And just this year, the legislature passed a pathway to a universal school choice program as well. The governor named it the L.A. Gator, which stands for Giving All True Opportunity to Rise. You really have to work for it.
They're so clever.
You gotta want it.
With those acronyms, aren't they clever?
They are. But over the next few years, this will phase into a universal program as well. It's an interesting experience. A lot of times these get caught up. We have experienced, we saw this in Texas, by rural Republicans. Right. People who ostensibly believe that government is not the best position to choose winners and losers, and certainly not to parent.
Except when it comes to
kids.
education.
Well, that's right.
Protectionism when it comes to education.
It's amazing how that happens.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what happened in Louisiana, and I know y'all have experienced some of this as well, the outcomes have been so poor that all of the sort of interest groups aligned. You have your traditional school choice allies, your families and churches that have come around to support, and also the business community. It's fascinating that our local Chamber of Commerce asks about school choice in their candidate questionnaire before they make endorsements or write checks to candidates.
Okay.
And, I think one of the things that's allowed us to make this progress is we have all of those, particularly on the right of center, the conservative interest groups and business interest groups all aligned on school choice and the need to drive more parental options for kids. And so getting all those people around that idea helps, so that there's nowhere for those those lawmakers to escape.
Right.
And, our vote this year, we picked up, I believe, 5 Democrats in the House, and we only lost 1 or 2 Republicans along the way.
Okay.
So there's opportunity, and I would just encourage lawmakers here and all of you working so hard to get school choice, keep pushing, because now is the time. We see a movement across the country to do this, and Mississippi's about circled by school choice states.
Yes, we are. That's what I just said. The walls are closing in on us from all directions.
And much like Louisiana, y'all have dealt with out-migration problems and declining population. That's part of the case we made, too, is, look, if we want to continue, the definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, we can keep doing things the way they are. We know what the outcome of that is, people leaving.
The major objection is, you're gonna overwhelm some schools with students wanting to transfer. You're going to pull funds away from schools and take it out of the public school realm and move it into other education settings, and that's going to be catastrophic. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think there's 2 approaches to that. The first is, it starts with a fallacy that this is government's money. Right? Schools, public services are funded by our taxpayer dollars, and the idea that we're somehow taking money from government, no, this is money that the voters and taxpayers have given to educate and create a workforce in our state. Yeah. Dollars should follow the child, and we should be focused not on systems, we should be focused on students and outcomes. Until we do that, we're only ever going to just perpetuate the same old status quo.
Well, I'm not sure what the situation is in Louisiana, but in Mississippi we have outsized spending on administrative costs in our K through 12 systems. I think more so than all the other southern states. This has been documented, analyzed, reported, exposed. So we have some opportunities there for some reforms to offset what is perceived to be loss of funding for students.
No question about it. And, the other thing on this, I was talking to one of our local superintendents who was, this is gonna bankrupt our schools and da-da-da. At the same time as saying our parents are happy, there's no reason to make this change. And I just said, well, sir, both of those can't be true. Either parents are happy and you're gonna be fine. No one's gonna leave. Everyone's gonna keep. Or
right. What are you worried about?
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. We've seen this work both ways in Louisiana. New Orleans is an entirely charter school district. Now all but one public school in Orleans Parish. Well, that actually had a reverse effect as well. It made the Catholic schools in New Orleans better.
Sure.
So not only does it help improve public school outcomes, and we've seen that in just about every study ever, this raises the performance for everybody.
Yeah,
that's right.
Competing for the same customer, and that's the student.
That's right.
Essentially. So what about some of the economic issues? We talked about tax reform already. We've got kind of a burdensome occupational licensing structure in Mississippi as well.
That's right. We've made some progress on this, thankfully, allowed a pathway for citizens to actually sue these licensure boards when they don't meet a health safety requirement. We've also passed, like Mississippi, the ability to have recognition of licensure across state lines. And we finally just got rid of our unique in the nation florist's license.
Oh, my gosh.
Which was just bizarrely absurd. So we're keeping our foot on the gas on this, and I know y'all will too. If we really are about opportunity for everyone, this is a big thing we've got to solve.
Daniel Erspamer, CEO of the Pelican Institute from Louisiana, has been our guest here on Middays. Appreciate it, Daniel. Enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks
it's great to be here.
You bet. Folks, we're stepping aside for a break. Final segment is next. It's Will Irvin, Senior Vice President with Empower Mississippi. Stay with us.